Prister and Tim O'Malley here in Scottsdale, Arizona, about 24 hours before Notre Dame takes on Oklahoma State. We just finished up 30 minutes with Marcus Freeman and Mike Gundy. I guess the best news to come out of it, Tim, I don't know that there was anything really earth-shattering here with the 30 minutes of obligatory questions in many instances, but Cam Hart, I think we were speculating about hamstring, which is a really difficult injury to overcome in a short period of time. Marcus Freeman said it is a upper thigh bruise, which can be a little bit debilitating too, but I think is a lot easier to bounce back from than a hamstring issue.
Yeah, it gives him a chance to play. Marcus Freeman seemed to indicate that he'd be able to. That's, if he's a game time decision, you're not going to indicate he's probably not going to play as a head coach. That's something all coaches know. So that's good news for Notre Dame fans because they could use Cam Hart. If it's Cam Hart for 25 to 30 snaps, that's better than Cam Hart for 0 snaps because that puts Bracey and Clarence Lewis in more of a position of strength. And to wrap it up on the injury front, they don't even have any COVID issues going into the game. So this seems like a best case scenario for Notre Dame after a week out here of practice.
Yeah, and as it relates to Hart and the secondary, the script has kind of been flipped for us because we were thinking Hart wasn't going to play, and now we find out that Blaine Green, the number 3 receiver for Oklahoma State, won't play. So it's kind of been flipped a little bit here in 24 hours. Maybe it's a little bit more promising in that matchup. They still have to deal with Jaden Bray, and they still have to deal with Tay Martin, of course. But I asked about Kyren Williams and who would be the emotional replacement for him. Marcus Freeman didn't really answer that. I did ask about punt returner, and it will be Matt Salerno, the guy that we know that can catch punts really, really well. Not sure how much productivity Notre Dame will get out of the punt return game, but Oklahoma State doesn't get a whole lot to begin with themselves.
Well, thanks for ruining the message board for the entire morning there, Tim, with the announcement of the punt returner. But yeah, Marcus Freeman mentioned the goal on special teams is to hand the ball back to the ref. So that's not the case for kick return. Obviously, they're going to look for something from Chris Tyree in the kick return game, but there will not be, most likely won't be an explosive play on punt returns as there is not in most games. Kyren Williams did a good job in that regard, but I don't think we look back on the season very often and say Kyren Williams changed things, changed the game with his punt returns. He had a really nice one against North Carolina, but I think it's probably the prudent way to go. You don't want to trust a first-timer back there. I know some fans wanted Lorenzo Styles. That's for next year.
That is for next year, and I agree with that decision. Now, I was a little surprised to hear Mike Gundy say that he will have 3 guys making the defensive calls depending upon down and distance. He's chosen the law firm of Hammersmith, Duffy, and Clements to handle it, and I think I'm sure, look, 17-year head coach, he knows what he's doing. But what if Notre Dame's in tempo? You have to make quick decisions, and now you're deciding which of the 3 guys makes the call.
I mean, I think that's the most important point here. I thought it was an interesting way of doing it. For instance, you're in 2nd and 10. Somebody has the 2nd and 10 package. Somebody has the 3rd and 1 versus the 3rd and 10 package. Well, yeah, then you match up. Well, what about tempo? You don't have to let them figure things out. So
2nd and 6, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 4.
I guess the only benefit of the doubt is, this is his 16th bowl game. I think he knows what he's doing, but it's a strange, on the surface, it's a strange move. And I guess we're not alone as football outsiders on this one because multiple people followed up with wait, what's your plan? And so that's unique. You got to remember, we're all worried about Notre Dame's defensive coordinator play calling. Their head coach is still there. That was the defensive coordinator. So I guess that's one plus for Notre Dame in terms of content.
Mike Elston can bounce ideas off of Marcus Freeman. Jim Knowles isn't around to do that. So that's an advantage for Notre Dame. This is the 2nd time that Marcus Freeman has mentioned the intensity and physicality of the Oklahoma State defensive front and Notre Dame being able to match just that sheer intensity. That's a little concerning to hear that. We know Notre Dame's offensive line has come a long way, and it's a tough matchup for Notre Dame. Vice versa, it's a tough matchup for Oklahoma State's offensive line against Notre Dame's defensive front. But Marcus Freeman keeps mentioning that, and so, the offensive line is going to really have to come ready to play against the intensity of Oklahoma State's defensive line.
Yeah, it's clearly on his mind. Look, Notre Dame didn't face a defense or a defensive line since Cincinnati, maybe a little bit of Virginia Tech where they did play well. They got after you, right? Did you ever come away from one of those games thinking, man, that defensive line was really getting after Notre Dame since week 5, week 6? So I'm sure, Freeman knows that. He realizes he's heard from Tommy Rees and Jeff Quinn that, this is our biggest challenge. And if you think back to their bigger challenges, Wisconsin and Cincinnati, they struggle a lot. Should be a much better line with Joe Alt, now a veteran of the position, Andrew Kristofic, ensconced in there, and Blake Fisher. And I know no Notre Dame fan really listening thinks Josh Lugg is a loss. We're going to find out if he is or not, because for all the talent Blake Fisher has, it just takes one cut loose play that Josh Lugg, when you cut a guy loose in miscommunication, it's different than getting beaten. It's just, that's different. It affects the quarterback and the running backs differently.
I agree with you, but I think we both feel like Blake Fisher is the best prepared to, without a bust.
I'm with the Notre Dame fans on this. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm saying we may find out that Josh Lugg was a little bit more effective than we give him credit for.
I do want to bring this up, and I mentioned it in the preview that will be published today, but this notion that with all the emotion that was involved in the hiring of Marcus Freeman, and I get that, and I still think that's in play, but to think that Oklahoma State isn't emotionally prepared because they were denied the opportunity to play in a playoff game. I mean, Oklahoma State doesn't go into most seasons thinking they're a playoff team.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's the team out there maybe that feels that, right?
Exactly. I was going to bring that up. I like Utah against Ohio State because Ohio State absolutely is not where they want to be. But why in the world would Oklahoma State not be completely jacked up for this game, playing Notre Dame for the first time in the history of their program, playing in the Fiesta Bowl? From an emotional standpoint, I think, especially since we're 3 or 4 weeks removed from the emotion of Marcus Freeman being named and everybody was caught up in the video, I think all that stuff is in the rearview mirror at this point.
I think it's dissipated, but I would say that if Brian Kelly were the coach of this game, I would give Oklahoma State the huge emotional edge. And now, I think it's Notre Dame will answer the bell here. They're still maybe that pregame talk by Marcus Freeman is going to bring some thoughts back of, you were abandoned, you are the best, you are a playoff team, let's show everybody you're a playoff team. And I think they will play at a pretty high pitch, and that's not a shot against Brian Kelly. It's a shot against a 12-year coach going against a program deemed inferior by the world, and Notre Dame players are not immune to thinking that, hey, this isn't Oklahoma, it's Oklahoma State, right? Whether that's not true, Notre Dame would score all over Oklahoma if they played them this year, but that is just kind of the nature of the beast in college football.
One last note, Jalen Warren, the running back, the leading rusher for Oklahoma State, as expected, is back and ready to roll. And now we got a pretty good idea why his carries diminished as the season went on, because Mike Gundy said that he really hasn't been fully healthy since TCU, which was 4 games ago. So he'll be back and ready to go. That's it today from Scottsdale, Arizona. Tim and I will hook up with you again when we get to Glendale, when Notre Dame takes on Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl on January 1st.